6:05 p.m. We'll begin with roll call.
Nelson?
Here.
Angel?
On this
Lady.
way.
Just pulled into the parking lot.
Okay, Gershenson?
Here.
Loops?
Here.
Tug?
Here.
Quarles?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay. Begin with the pledge of allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
May I have a motion to approve the minutes of August 26th, moved by Commissioner Loeb, seconded by Commissioner Nelson. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you. Everyone should have an agenda in front of them. And we move to approve the agenda as printed.
I'll move it.
Moved
Support.
by Commissioner Todd, seconded by Commissioner Lutz. All in favor, say
Aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Thank you. Public comment. Anyone from the public to say a few words? Well, I'd like to thank the staff for staying around this late. Communications, there's no communications? One? Oh, item A. Oh, the contingency report. Yeah, how can I forget that? It's another. Okay. I know at one time there was a question about it.
Oh, okay.
May I have a motion to accept and file the communication, Commissioner Tom, and seconded by Commissioner Gershenson?
I have a question.
Sure.
It would be on page 1 of the report, or page 6 on our iPad, if your iPad works. At the very bottom, it says Sheriff's Office 2019 Dream Cruise Use of Road and Commission for Oakland County RCOC for special event signage. I just wondered, I don't remember that coming across to us before. So is that something that's gonna be used over and over again, or does anybody know anything about it?
So
Lynn?
that was a separate resolution that was adopted by the board for use of contingency. That $10,000 was a high-level estimate from the road commission. They will bill us the actual costs incurred
Okay,
to
so
put
but-
up the signage every year where they have vehicle
Right,
restrictions on the road.
I know that, but is that used every year, or is it?
They will bring us forth a separate resolution every year if they deem it necessary to
I
get
remember the
additional
resolution,
funding.
I was just asking if there's a shelf life for these signs, or do they get
No,
pitched
they
out?
are reused. The shelf,
Okay.
the signage is reused. So a couple years ago, they had to purchase the signage, and now this is the cost for the labor and the vehicles at the road commission to put up the signage.
Okay, I got it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. Moving to the regular agenda. Pardon me.
We have to vote, don't we, on this? To receive.
Oh, communications, we need to take a voice vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, thank you. Moving to the regular agenda, starting with the first item, which is the report. Starting with the recommended report for compensation. Oh, thank you. Fiscal year 2020 salary recommendation, and may I have a motion to bring forward? Commissioner Nelson, moved and seconded by Commissioner Gershenson. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm gonna have Heather Mason and Lori Taylor walk you through the recommendation for the salary package this year. Go ahead.
The first page you'll see is a memo from Jordy and I. It talks about the importance of having a competitive compensation package and including salaries, so that we can recruit and retain employees. We've been working with our consultant for the compensation study, and we have presented the recommendations to the board. And we'd like to bring that in the future in a separate resolution. So attached in this report are the salaries package for non-represented classifications. Those that are represented by bargaining units are negotiated, their salaries are negotiated. So Heather's gonna walk you through the report, which is on page 2 of your packet.
This report is proposed from the LAGO committee to accept the county executive's recommended budget for fiscal year 2020. Item number 1 would be to increase the current salary ranges by a 2% general salary increase for fiscal year 2020, effective the pay period that begins September 28th, 2019. Item number 2 is to increase the current salary ranges for all remaining classifications, such as exceptions from the salary grade, appointed part-time and hourly classes, students, and seasonal classifications, providing them with a 2% salary increase. The judges of the circuit court, probate court, and district court are currently at the maximum allowed per the state of Michigan. The county executive does not make a recommendation as far as the Oakland County Road Commission members. That is a Board of Commissioners recommendation. The Board of Commissioners themselves, the salaries are set by Public Act 261 of 1966, which says that commission salaries, become effective only after the time the members of the County Board of Commissioners commence their terms of office. And with this, you vote for the general salary increase for commissioners on 2-year terms. So it was approved with fiscal year 2019 with miscellaneous resolution 18-329 to have a Me Too with the general non-represented employees for fiscal year 2020. So if approved, the commissioners would get a 2% increase. Item number 3, the county executive does not make a recommendation for the other elected officials. So this committee would be asked to move and support a percentage for general salary increase if you so choose. Item number 4, we are recommending the county executive is recommending the creation of 4 new classifications to the salary administration plan. Also recommending to retitle the following classifications to a new classification, and this is condensing the administrators within public health and the chiefs within public health all into one classification title. There's the recommendation to delete 2 classifications that are no longer being used. There are no budgeted positions, there are no employees within this classification. We have reports, supporting reports I can go through if you would like in the rest of the salaries package.
So open for questions?
Okay, open for Commissioner Todd, followed by Commissioner Gurschison.
Yes, I'm going to suggest that we fill in the blank on number 3 and put 2% in, so I'll make that motion.
Okay. Is there a second to it? Commissioner Gurschison will second. Any further discussion on the amendment that we have on the table now. Okay, we need to vote on the amendment first, and then we'll come back for further discussion.
Okay, on the amendment, Nelson,
Yes.
Gingell,
Yes.
Gershenson,
Yes.
Lubes,
Yes.
Tubb,
Yes.
Quarles.
Yes.
Then I
Motion
have one
carried.
more quick question.
Okay.
Now that I've raised everybody's salaries, do we have funding to cover this in the budget?
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to, giving everybody a raise, and I don't know if we have enough money to do it, but I think you're telling me if there was money. Lynn, I'm sorry.
So we do have, for the general fund, we do have a reserve account set aside in non-departmental general fund that was supposed to cover the compensation study and a general salary increase. It's about $6.1 million. There is an impact that impacts other special revenue funds and proprietary funds. They would have to adjust their grants or their rates accordingly in order to cover this 2% general salary increase.
Okay. All right, but basically it's there. That's all I needed to know. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Commissioner Gershenson, followed by Commissioner Gingell.
Thank you. Just curious, what is an auction coordinator?
This is a position that is being recommended to be created for central services. The size of the auction has increased to such a level that they would like a full-time position in order to post items online.
Sure,
Get the
I
advertising out.
understand. Is there someone now, or that's something we contract out?
They actually have a person in-house right now,
Okay, so we're just making it,
yes.
okay. And CHPIS is,
I'm going to defer to Leanne Stafford.
okay.
Currently, we say that is CHIPIS, and I even have to look it up because it gets confusing, it's Community Health Promotion and Intervention Services.
And what does that mean?
That is our health education unit, our
Okay.
nutrition unit,
Okay,
also our hearing and vision.
got it.
And,
That's a
yes.
great group. I work with them a lot, so that's a great group. I just wasn't familiar with the name. Very good, thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Gingell, Commissioner Lewis, did you have a question?
It's about the classifications also. We deleted the following classifications, beginning with animal control dispatch clerk and ending with market master. So it sounds like these positions were placed under another title. We still have a market master.
Yeah.
It's
So
appendix 1A on page 7.
this is the Human Resources Committee report from fiscal year 19. So this is what was approved last year in the budget process.
I'm a year behind. Thank you.
And, yeah,
Yeah, I just had a question, it might be for Lynn, but if I'm recalling the original budget, even though I know it was under a different county exec, but wasn't a 1% increase that was proposed?
So what they had factored in is they assumed the compensation study would equate to roughly a 1% across the board, and then they didn't have the budget spread out between all of the county departments. They put a placeholder in non-departmental general fund.
Right.
And so then with this, in July, when the county executive made their presentation to the board, they suggested a 1%. That has now changed to a 2%. So what does that mean to the compensation study? HR can kind of explain that a little bit, but it'll just narrow that gap between the cap.
Right, so let me keep asking you and maybe lead the witness. So here's where I'm at in my mind. It was originally proposed at 1% across the board. We're moving it up to 2%. We had 6 million, I guess you're saying 6.1 million in the budget for salary grade adjustments based on the benchmarking study. So the net to Shelley's question is we have more than enough money to pay for the 2% increase. However, it might boomerang back on us when we get into the benchmark study. But in my mind, and I guess this is a question for the full board, we are giving people an uptick now so that when we look at where their current pay is compared to the benchmark, if we weren't doing this, you'd have a larger gap. As we do this, you'll have less of a gap if there's an adjustment to be made. So if the forecasts were right about total comp, it shouldn't be almost a net neutral impact to the budget, in my mind.
It should be. That 6.1 million also was supposed to help cover the wage reopeners that HR will be taking up in the next month or two. So again, and if there is an issue where based on the update of the compensation study, if there is where the general fund impact was just the 6.1,
Yeah, so, sorry to interrupt, but no one's guaranteed an increase based on the wage study.
That's
That would
correct.
be a separate action.
That's
but so-
correct.
Okay, I'm good. Thank you.
I have a question then, Commissioner Todd for the second time. The compensation study, and I'm still unclear on that, because let me take a step back. I did not sit on previous committees where HR personnel, I know you've gone through several name changes. Where are we with that study? Has it been distributed? I know I haven't seen it, so.
So a request was made by the board. You had provided me with a request for that information, and we had emailed it back to you and to Commissioner Woodward and Commissioner Zach
And Commissioner
and
Markham.
Commissioner Markham.
Yeah.
Okay.
Received it via email. So that was at the end of July. We now know that with this 2%, it will have an impact on where that recommendation is, so we will have to rerun those numbers. We had incorporated into that comp study as well the $15 an hour wage. So that's being pulled out. So the information that was emailed to you then, we will have to rework those numbers with our consultant because there's been differences with the 2% as well as $15 an hour. It will have an impact on where we're at. But we do recognize, go ahead.
Before I can tell you, I have not received it, so I assume it must have went to the OGov email, which I don't have access to and haven't had.
We'll get you another copy of that. But, I mean, what we send you now will have to be updated, but you'll be able to get an idea as to where we were at with that. But we recognize that the 2% will be evenly distributed across all classifications, and we are in the process of bargaining some wage reopeners, and we've been able to have a tentative agreement with 2 of the unions on a wage reopener with this 2% right now. So we're headed in the right direction with that. But the comp study will be something that comes back after, we can also look at reworking those numbers. But yes, it may have an impact on a smaller gap for increases for employees because they would be receiving it up front right now.
Okay, Commissioner Tom.
Okay, now I'm good and confused. There, in the impact study, okay, or the study we don't have yet, or somebody has it, we don't have it all. There was a floor, right? Is that correct? We would start with the floor of what we have today, before the, okay. Now, if the impact study suggests, I'm just gonna make this up, a 3% increase, okay, I don't know, I've never seen it. But if it would suggest a 3% increase, are we gonna start back at the original floor, or are we gonna say, we already gave them 2, and then we'll give them another 1%, or are we gonna give them 3 more percent plus the 2, which would be 5%? This is very confusing to me.
I can answer that. So what this compensation study does is that currently we have a point factor evaluation plan that evaluates jobs, and then statistically it puts you in a salary grade based on the number of points you have.
Okay.
So first and foremost, that tool was introduced in 1986. So we felt it was time to get a more updated tool. So that was part of the whole study. Our consultant has a new tool. It's a software that calculates what is input regarding the job duties and responsibilities for 12 different factors. So what happens is then the points equal out to a salary grade. Now, the salary grades were determined on market value, and with the maximums being slightly above market because we want to be competitive. Oakland County is never going to be in a position to greatly lead the labor market, but we want to at least be competitive. So from there, what will happen is everyone will get this 2% general increase, but some of our salary ranges currently are already competitive. Some were not so competitive. So it's a whole new wage structure with new pay grades, new minimums, new maximums new steps in between. So where someone falls will depend on what grade level they are. So those jobs that were already competitive, their new range is not going to go up much. So they would go to the next closest step where they're currently at. That could be literally a 0.5%. Some people were very much under the labor market. They'll still go to the next step, is what we're proposing. It could be a higher percentage that they get. So no one's going to get the same percent increase when they fall into the new compensation plan.
And nobody's gonna get a decrease, is that correct?
No,
Okay, so I don't wanna see someone's job
No.
devaluated,
was
so we're gonna
no-
take $1 an hour away from them.
no
Okay.
one's, and yeah, we wouldn't.
I got it. Thank you,
Yep.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Gentle.
Yeah, so just to clarify, so we're giving everybody across the board a 2% raise. Originally, we were proposing a 1% raise.
Correct.
Right.
So it's a net 1 point increase. We had a pot of money over here, $6.1 million that we were gonna use for increases related to the benchmark study, et cetera. So we have more than enough money to cover the 1 point increase across the board. It's a question of, do we have enough money left over to cover whatever changes now exist based on the recommendations from the benchmark study? And if that answer is yes, then it's absolutely a total wash. If the answer is no, then we can make a decision to repurpose money in the existing budget, add more money, or give the increases over a period of time versus everything at once, right? I mean, I'm not.
Yeah, there'd be
ans-
different options. We
Right,
could-
but so to me, this is not just my perspective. I think it's pretty reasonable, and I don't think it has a major impact on the budget that was proposed. So,
And I just add, as we've worked with our consultant, they are willing to come back and explain this to you as well, as to their process as to how they actually went through and did everything step by step. So if we have, the lead time, we want to be able to provide them that opportunity to explain it as well.
Thank you. Commissioner Gershenson.
Thank you. So, how long has this study been going on?
A year and a half. And I just want to add, we did provide some additional time because as departments were getting the job analysis questionnaires from their employees, they realized they needed some more time. So we provided some extended deadlines for departments to turn information in to us. And then when we met with them on an initial recommendation, we also provided some additional time for them to review that info. So when I say a year and a half, it seems like a long time, but we probably didn't build in enough as an expectation, but we gave departments and employees a lot more time to provide information to us.
I understand, there's just been a lot of frustration on the part of the board, where we've been waiting and waiting for this report, and so now it has to be reworked. How much have we paid for this?
The total contract's $157,000, and we're 75% through the process. We would pay the balance upon implementation. When we will get the actual software, they'll train us on it, the software will become ours.
So are you anticipating an increase because of the change in the numbers? They're gonna just ride with this change?
Right.
And keep you at the same price?
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
And also, if I can add, so the initial recommendation was a 12-step, so we currently have 5 steps. They brought back to us 12 steps as we met with departments and listened to their feedback. They thought 12 steps was lengthy, so we went back and said, let's go with 8 steps. So there is time that we heard from the departments, what were some of the concerns they had, reworked it and came back. So I recognize the frustration. Our employees are definitely sitting on the edge of their seat, waiting for this recommendation. It's a huge undertaking. The last time this was done, it took 2 years to implement.
I understand, it's just in the budget hearings, that's the number one issue we've been hearing.
Definitely.
And not having seen the report in all this time, it's been kind of a frustrating experience.
Commissioner Gentle.
yeah, I'm sorry for the third time, but I'll make it quick. So how many employees were included in the benchmark study? Was it across the board?
Yeah, there was 3,500 employees approximately and 825 classifications, and that included full and part-time employees, not all non-represented.
Yeah, and I just think it's important for that, because just my history in the private sector, going through a benchmark study for under 2,000 employees, it took about 14 months to go through that process of classifying them. And so you're doing almost twice that amount in a little bit more time. So I agree with you. It's probably expectation setting and expectation overall on our side. So just a point of reference, that's all.
Oh, I appreciate that. I really have no point of reference.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we found some employees didn't want to fill it out,
Right.
and then we kind of had to go hound them for that info because they were in very unique classifications. And then we heard from some departments who said, you know, my employees just, we forgot. And we're like, we can't keep extending deadlines because then that harms us on the side of why is it taking so long? So at some point, we had to cut it off and say, okay, we've just got to keep moving forward. And we've been keeping track, just as we've had additional comments, either after the budget hearings of what we have is set as an amendment list, that we know we're gonna have to go back and revisit these things, because our employees keep, ever changing in their roles too.
Yeah.
So if you were to look at a best guess on a date that you may be implementing this, what would be your best guess? And I know this is just
Sure.
a guess.
Well, we would, with the 2% and the $15 an hour wage, we're gonna ship it back to our consultant, ask them to rework the numbers. We wanna give them we say a short period of time to turn it around, but we want accurate information coming back to us. So I think if we can give them at least 4 to 6 weeks to give us a solid product, then we would be ready to provide you with a recommendation again, and then look to set up a time, if you're open to having the consultant come as well and explain the process that they went through on their end, we could set a date to do so. So, looking forward about, I'll say 6 to 8 weeks out.
Okay. And not that I would know, but what is your consultant that you're working with?
They're called MAG, we refer to them as MAG, it's Management Advisory Group.
Okay. Are they a local group?
They are out of, well, the consultants come from a couple of different states, but
Yeah.
the one consultant who is very interested in coming back is in for
South Carolina.
South Carolina.
They also specialize in public sector and educational institutions.
Okay. Okay.
So as soon as we get the recommendation back from them, we can reach out to you to look to see what type of time frame we're looking at to hopefully have it as a recommendation to come before you.
Okay. Any further questions? Okay. Then we will move to vote on the report as amended. Roll call, please.
Gingell,
Yes.
Gershenson.
Yes.
Luce,
Yes.
Todd,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Quarles.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Second item on the agenda is the second item on the agenda is the recommendation for an appointment to the library board. Moved by Commissioner Todd. Second by Commissioner Nelson. Any discussion?
I just want to say, is there, that this is, Lisa Langton is an exceptional member of this board, and she has been so terrific in just reducing the size of the library, but yet making sure that we have help for those who truly need it. So I truly recommend her. She's been incredible on the board.
And the recommendation from the chief judge is Judge Lisa Langton. So I want to know. Any further discussion? Will you call the roll, please?
Gershenson,
Yes.
Luce.
Yes.
Todd,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Gingell,
Yes.
Quarles.
Yes. Motion carried. Any further business? Then thank you for the special meeting and fitting it into your schedule, and meeting